culmination of our mission to truthfully go where no news will have been going before. And from Reuters.com, Hamas gunman wounds 3 in Tel Aviv attack. A Palestinian gunman opened fire in Tel Aviv on Thursday, wounding 3 people before being killed by police in what Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu labeled a terror attack amid rising unrest in the West Bank. From Al Jazeera, 3 wounded in Tel Aviv shooting, Israeli police say. Israeli police said the assailant had been neutralized after he opened fire near a cafe on Dizengoff Street. At least 3 people have been wounded in shooting in the Israel city of Tel Aviv and are being treated by emergency services. Israel's ambulance service has said as television footage showed large numbers of police and medical workers at the scene. Shooting took place next to a cafe on the corner of Dizengoff Street and Ben Gurion Street. The Magen David Adom ambulance service said, according to the Times of Israel. We evacuated the 3 with gunshot wounds, one of them in critical condition, 1 seriously wounded and 1 lightly wounded, MDA Director Eli Ben told Israel's Khan television. Israel police said the assailant had been neutralized but provided no details about the circumstances of the shooting, which they said could be a terrorist attack. Police and medics were still on the scene, and it was unclear if they were looking for a second attacker. Shootings in Tel Aviv, a densely populated commercial and cultural capital, are rare. This is going to be very concerning to the police, Al Jazeera's Imran Khan said, reporting from occupied Al-Quds. He added that the shooting took place in a busy street full of bars, restaurants, and cafes. Ordinarily, it would have been packed, but given the huge amount of demonstrators who were in Tel Aviv, it would have been busier than normal, he said, referring to weeks of widespread protest against the government's plan to overhaul the judicial system. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu reacted to the news while on visit to Italy, a very serious attack in Tel Aviv, a terrorist attack, sending recovery wishes to the injured, he said. We're strengthening the police and security forces. This will not weaken our determination to plant roots in our homeland, he added. National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir later said the gunman had been killed, a serious attack in Tel Aviv. I congratulate the police officer who in a courageous attack eliminated the heinous terrorist and saved many lives, he said in a statement. In light of the attack, Tel Aviv Mayor Ron Huldai called on anti-government protesters to clear the streets to allow police to secure the area, the Times of Israel reported. Rallies have been held since early January when Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's government proposed legislation to limit the Supreme Court's powers. If passed, the law will curb the Supreme Court's powers to rule against the legislature and the executive while giving legislatures decisive power in appointing judges. The incident also comes amid heightened tension in the occupied West Bank. Israel's settler-related violence against Palestinians has skyrocketed since Netanyahu came back to power at the helm of a right-wing coalition that seeks to expand illegal settlements in the occupied West Bank and pursue other anti-Palestinian policies. The United States Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin expressed concerns about Jewish settler violence against Palestinians while on a visit to Israel on Thursday. In a joint news conference with the Zionist counterpart Yoav Gallant, Austin said Washington's commitment to the Zionist security was ironclad, but warned against acts that could trigger more insecurity. And from Tel Aviv, Palestinian wounds 3 Israelis in shooting. Attack on busy downtown street comes hours after soldiers killed 3 Palestinians in the occupied West Bank. A Palestinian man opened fire on a busy Tel Aviv street on Thursday and wounded 3 people before being shot dead, according to Israeli officials. A police spokesman told Middle East Eye the shooter has been identified as a 23-year-old Palestinian from the occupied West Bank city of Ramallah. The Palestinian movement, Hamas, said he was a member of the group and that the shooting was a natural response to recent deadly Zionist military raids in the West Bank. A medic who was responding to the incident told MEE they treated 3 men in their 20s who were in critical, serious, and moderate conditions. All 3 have been transferred to Ichilov Hospital to receive further treatment. The shooting took place on Dizengoff Street, a popular downtown area filled with restaurants and bars, and came hours after Zionist forces killed 3 Palestinians in what appeared to be a targeted killing near the West Bank city of Jenin earlier in the day. Tensions have been high in Israel and Palestine in recent months as attacks in the West Bank intensify and Palestine resistance grows. Zionist forces have killed at least 74 Palestinians this year, which corresponds to a rate of nearly 1 killing every day. Actually, it's only been 69 days in the year, and I've seen numbers above 78, so it's well over that. It's the bloodiest start of the year since 2000, according to the Palestinian Health Ministry, and 13 Israelis were killed by Palestinians in the same period. Eyewitnesses told MEE the shooter on Thursday first opened fire at people near a restaurant around 9 p.m. local time and then fled the scene. He was pursued by 2 armed civilians and 2 police officers who killed him in a shootout minutes later, according to Police Commissioner Kobai Shabtai. The quick reaction by the 4 men helped prevent a much worse situation, Shabtai told reporters at the scene. One of the civilians, a police volunteer who were part of the shootout, told MEE he was in the area to pick up his daughter from a party. I saw people running around and then I took out my gun. I asked the 2 men injured where the terrorists ran. They told me he fled north and hid in an alleyway. When we got to him, he started shooting at us and ran towards us before we shot him and he fell, he said. So a civilian shot him. These are the details that are so obfuscated by all of the rest of the layers of propaganda, including that, the person who did the shooting, not only did they not kill anyone, they just injured people, but that person was a terrorist. And then the people who did the killing, they're civilians who are pulling out guns, and this makes no sense. When we got to him, he started shooting at us and ran towards us before we shot him and he fell. Menachem, another eyewitness who works at a juice bar across the road from where the shooting took place, described the scene of chaos after the first few shots were heard. We heard the gunshots and everyone was running around. I saw 2 people on the ground and everyone rushing away. Dizengoff Street is often the target of deadly attacks when Zionist and Palestinian tensions are high. It was the scene of a suicide bombing in the 90s and deadly shooting in 2016 and 2022. And here's some audio from a South African radio show interviewing a Hamas member in the Hamas movement.
Well, we're on to part 2 of this morning's edition of News and Views. I am Inayat Wadi with you this morning and will be with you right until 10 a.m. as we continue remaining in the company of Salam Media listeners, the viewers, and also One Nation 88.9 FM out of Polokwane. We welcome you to the show. Looking ahead at the show this morning, we will be linking up with the Hamas movement this morning, taking a look at their response to the resolution to downgrade the South African embassy in Israel. We also will be focusing on the fire in the Rohingya refugee camp out in Bangladesh. Abdul Alim Hamza, the HOD of Fund Development, Basim Naim, Head of Council on Interviews. So we will be playing those out towards the end of the broadcast. But right now we're going to be joined by Dr. Basim Naim, Head of Council on International Relations based in Gaza. Dr. Basim Naim, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome and Jazakallah for your time.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Yes, the big talking point as far as Palestine is concerned is what had transpired at the parliament in South Africa and the government and the vote that was taken to downgrade the South African embassy in Israel. And this move has been seen as a very, very positive move. At this point in time, it is a draft resolution until it becomes law. But just your reaction as Hamas and the Hamas movement to these developments in South Africa.
Thank you very much. Not only Hamas movement, but all the Palestinian people here who are struggling for freedom and independence from the Israeli occupation have greatly appreciated this step by the South African parliament. This decision has been taken long time ago by the government, but reaffirming this decision by the government, by the parliament in South Africa, was a great step in solidifying this decision. And again, we have appreciated this a lot, and we hope that a lot of other countries in Africa and in other continents will follow this step to exercise the maximum pressure on this fascist government in Israel, the Zionist occupation, so that they abide the international law and give the Palestinians their genuine rights of independence, freedom, and self-sovereignty.
Yes. Now, this has been a very, very historic resolution here in South Africa, where in 2017, the ANC government had made this a policy decision. And what we've seen is one of the very small political parties. In fact, they've only got 2 members of parliament. It's called the National Freedom Party. Ahmed Mansour Sheikh Imam, who is the leader of this party in parliament, had actually brought about and calling for this resolution. And it's been very encouraging to see that many parties have actually supported this. And this alone, I suppose, is very, very encouraging to you as well, Dr. Basim Naim.
First of all, we believe that this is a historical decision, as you have said, but we believe here in Palestine that all people in South Africa, from all groups, from all races, can understand very well the struggling and the suffering of the Palestinian people under a racist, fascist occupation and an apartheid regime led by Netanyahu and his right-wing extremists. Therefore, this historical decision and resolution from the parliament, to be honest, is the expected response from people who suffered for decades in South Africa from an apartheid regime. Maybe they are the best people who can understand very well what does it mean apartheid, what does it mean to live under a fascist government. This decision, this resolution, giving us a hope that still we can work at the international level to isolate this regime, to besiege it, and to push it or to squeeze it to abide the international law and to leave our occupied territories. I mean, and we know that this decision by South Africa, the government and the parliament, at the international level, it is not an easy decision. From one side, it is leading a course against apartheid and against fascism and against colonial projects everywhere, but in particular here in Palestine. But on the other side, we know how much the Zionist lobby can work against South Africa and its regime and its viable forces. Therefore, we know that this is a very courageous decision. It could be that South Africa have to pay a high price for this courageous, dignified decision. We are appreciating this historical decision, and we hope that again other countries will follow this track. And we also hope that South Africa continue, despite of all pressure, this policy, and take new steps to help the Palestinians to achieve their goals.
Yes, Dr. Basim, I think you make a very, very important point when you talk about the consequences of this resolution and what it could impact or how it could impact on South Africa and the South African government. And we've also seen some of the Zionist lobby groups here in South Africa starting to make some noises in the reaction to this draft resolution. But the message has been very, very clear, and the message that came out very, very strongly in Parliament is a country like South Africa cannot remain neutral in a conflict, because neutrality is not an option, because you've got oppression, you've got human rights violations, you've got, the Palestinians have been suffering for a very, very long time. And this is the reason why, South Africa cannot act as a neutral mediator in the conflict. And one needs to obviously side on the path of justice, and also at the same time recognize the fact that Israel still continues to be the occupier. It still continues to abuse international human rights law. It still continues to punish and to displace, to murder the Palestinians each and every day.
Look, brother, we are aware about the seriousness of the consequences of such decision, but at the same time, we are also very well aware about the history of South Africa and how much they have struggled, and how many prices have they paid to achieve their freedom. Therefore, we know that South Africa is taking all these steps and decisions very aware about the moral consequences and duties put on South Africa as a leading country in Africa, and maybe at the whole level. We have seen 2 weeks ago how much South Africa has worked hardly with other countries like Algeria and Nigeria to kick Israel out from the African Union, and we know that accepting Israel as a member in the African Union is totally or in contradictory with the African Union constitution and history, and the history of all these African countries who are recently become free from colonial powers, the Americans, the England, the English, and so on. The other point is, especially this decision today from the parliament in South Africa is very, very important for 2 points. One point is that every day, today in the morning at dawn, 3 Palestinians were killed, assassinated by Israeli forces. Yesterday, 10 Palestinians were killed, assassinated by Israeli forces. Dozens wounded. This is the story of every day. Every day, Palestinian lives are lost, Palestinian houses demolished, Palestinian land annexed, a new settlement built. They are very rudely and publicly talking. Maybe you have heard that the Minister of Finance, Bezalel Smotrich, who is a racist, fascist Hitler, who have called to burn totally the village of Hawara with all its citizens. Therefore, to take a decision at this time is very important for the Palestinians to support them in this battle against fascism and against colonialism. And it's very important also to send a strong message that it is enough. What the Israelis are doing is really enough. It is beyond humanitarian expectations, especially in the 21st century. The other point is that unfortunately, that despite of all these crimes by this fascist government, that some countries are initiating a normalization process in Africa and the Arabic world and somewhere else. And we hope that these countries to take decisions like what South Africa has taken to cut any relationship to Israel, to isolate Israel. Therefore, the message from South Africa to all these countries who are initiating a new process of normalization, that it is clear. It means that they are telling them it is shameful what you are doing, because as you said, there is neutrality is not an option here. Neutrality means that you are participating, you are part of, you are active part in the crime committed by the Israeli government and by the Israeli sector. Therefore, we consider it a very historic, very important, very crucial decision by South Africa and South African government, South African parliament to take this decision, especially at this moment.
Yes, Dr. Basim, just finally, and this was expected and it comes as no surprise, and what you just mentioned, the response that has come through from the Israeli Foreign Ministry also talks about what you have just said, at a time when many African and Muslim countries are strengthening and deepening ties with the State of Israel for the benefit of everyone's common interest. Now, I don't know what common interest they actually refer to, but in the same sentence, they say it is unfortunate that South Africa continues to adhere to the deterioration of relations, a move that will only harm South Africa itself. And here we see some veiled threats that are already directed at South Africa.
Unfortunately, I was not able to hear all what you have said, but what I got that about the response of the Minister of Foreign Affairs in Israel towards this decision. Unfortunately, the Israelis are leading a double-faced policies. On one side, they are squeezing the Palestinians here on the ground. They are isolating them. They are putting them in jails, in cantons. And on the other side, they are trying to present to the whole world that they are representing the Western values of democracy and human rights, and women's rights, and liberal values. And they were able, along decades, to sell this kind of hypocrisy to a lot of countries. Therefore, intentionally, the Israelis, they will forbid anyone who is visiting Israel to visit the Palestinian areas, in camps and villages, because they know that if anyone will visit the Palestinian villages, he will see the real face of Israel, the face of a criminal, the face of a fascist, racist government.
Well, Dr. Basim Naim, Jazakallah khairan so much for that and for taking out your time this morning, joining us here on Salam Media for this discussion. We wish you well, inshallah. We continue making dua for